You've seen her on the ground. In Minnesota during the BLM riots, in New York and D.C. during Antifa, and on the border, facing the cartels and child traffickers head on. Now, she's here with you. This is the Sara Carter Show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sara Carter Show. Okay, I'm a little raspy today. I'm still getting over this laryngitis, but we're gonna do it. Today we have a very important and a very sad story. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane. Many of you who listen to my show will know what I'm talking about when I say Brian Terry and the Fast and Furious scandal and the murder of Brian Terry and the fact that his family has never received justice. And today we have his brother Kent on the show with us to discuss what happened, what is happening now, and what the Trump administration can do in the future. That's how important this is. Also, before we get to Kent, I wanted to let you know that before we get started, I'm going to be attending an event in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia, May 1st and 2nd. I'm hoping that all of you will attend too. It's huge. It's the Job Creators Network Annual Freedom Fighters Summit. We're going to be spending 2 days discussing pressing issues facing our nation with conservative luminaries leading America's political revolution, folks. Media stars like Trish Reagan's going to be there, Hugh Hewitt, love him, Mike Gallagher, and yours truly. You'll also hear from policy minds like Grover Norquist, Stephen Moore, and the one and only Kellyanne Conway, and Governors Youngkin, Kemp, and Reynolds, along with members of the president's cabinet and members of Congress. All of this in one place, discussing fights we are winning and need to win in Washington, D.C. and throughout our states. This isn't just any event. Here you'll get to meet the presenters and panelists because JCN events are designed with intimacy in mind, not scale. It's why I'm there. It's why we have this limited, wonderful scale, a number of seats available for private events as well as for large scale audiences. There'll be a great entertainment too from SNL comedy legend Rob Schneider. I can't wait to see him there. And music legend Lee Greenwood, plus opportunities to enjoy golf and tour Savannah. To reserve your spot for this one-of-a-kind private event in beautiful Savannah, go to jcn2025summit.com. A limited number of tickets, only 150 right now are available, so grab them quick. Go to jcn2025summit.com now and get tickets before they sell out. That's jcn2025summit.com. I'm excited to be there. You'll be too. Portions of your ticket, listen to this, are tax deductible and support Job Creators Network Foundation. Like I said, today we are going to remember Brian Terry, Border Patrol agent who lost his life in the line of duty. I want you all to watch this video first, and then we're going to come right back and discuss what happened and where the case is standing right now.
I'm Border Patrol Agent Leonardo Rodriguez of the Tucson Sector U.S. Border Patrol Tactical Unit, BORTAC. Today we remember Border Patrol Agent Brian A. Terry, who died in the line of duty December 15th, 2010. Agent Terry was a BORTAC member assigned to the Tucson Sector Special Operations Detachment. On December 14th, Agent Terry's team encountered a group of armed subjects near Rio Rico, Arizona. In an exchange of gunfire, Agent Terry was mortally wounded. He succumbed early the next morning. He was 40 years old. All 7 subjects involved in Agent Terry's murder were later convicted and sentenced to prison. Agent Terry joined the U.S. Border Patrol on July 23, 2007. He was a U.S. Marine Corps veteran and previous police officer in Lincoln Park, Michigan. He was survived by his parents, brother, and 2 sisters. Agent Brian A. Terry will always be remembered for his service and sacrifice. Honor first.
Brian was an amazing Border Patrol agent that lost his life needlessly on the border, and later to be discovered that it was because of an operation under the Obama administration called Fast and Furious that he lost his life. It was a horrific story. It was a terrible time. And I felt like it was a failure of our congressional representatives and our government to hold the Obama administration and the Department of Justice accountable for what they have done, and I think what continues to take place in Mexico. And that's why I have Kent Terry here, Brian Terry's brother, and I want to thank you for joining the show, and thank you for putting up with this laryngitis. So I'm going to ask you to tell the story a little bit, Kent. I want everyone to hear from the very beginning what happened to your brother. But first, I'd like you to describe your brother to me. I want you to talk about Brian because it's been a long time since his death. And for those of you out there who don't know about him, it's going to break your heart. But I think, Kent, you're the only person that can do it.
Well, Brian was a very fit, mentally and physically fit man. He was determined. He was on a path to a career that he's been focused on since he was a little kid. I mean, he was always wore this U.S. Marine Corps shirt. My uncle was a Marine and gave Brian his T-shirt when he was a young kid, probably 7 or 8 years old. And my mom had to fight to wash it all the time from him because that's all he wanted to do was just be a Marine like his uncle. Well, he ended up joining out of high school. He ended up joining the Marine Corps. He did 4 years active, 4 years reserve. And while he was doing reserve, he's going to finish up his college to be a law enforcement officer here in Michigan. And at the time, my uncle was chief of police at a local city here where I'm from. And Brian wanted to follow his footsteps and finished up college and joined a local city that my uncle worked at. And he just wanted to follow up the ranks, and that wasn't good enough for him. So he joined the U.S. Border Patrol in 2006.
You know, a lot of people don't know this, but my brother was a U.S. Border Patrol agent, and he has served in DHS and just recently retired. And, you know, I have so much love for our law enforcement agents, and they put so much on the line, willing to sacrifice everything. And your brother was one of the ones that sacrificed everything in service of his nation. Talk a little bit about that fateful day. What happened to him?
Well, I talked to Brian a few days before his death that he was going to come home for Christmas for the first time in 4 years because he's always busy with work down there on the border. And I talked to him before. He said, "Well, hey, I ain't going to have my phone on me." He was going to be out in the desert for a few days. He was, "Make sure you pick me up at the airport, Friday." I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." He gave me his flight stuff and blah, blah, blah. Well, about 15 more minutes before they were to get off on his last day for his 2-week vacation, they encountered a group of a RIP crew from the Sinaloa cartel, I believe it was, the Sinaloa cartel. They worked for them. And they've been trying to apprehend these guys and catch these guys for months and months and months, but they felt like they were always getting tipped off about their places where they were, hidden, hunkered down at, waiting for these guys. They're always getting tipped off. And finally, this one night, that night, December 14th, 15 minutes before he got off, these guys come down a washout and set off their trip wire or whatever it was. And one of the officers stood up and started yelling, "Policia, policia," and just erupted in a total gunfight. So, and Brian got more fatally wounded in the back with a round from AK-47.
One of the biggest issues right now, and then we're going to go back to these weapons that were being used by the Sinaloa cartel and how those weapons had come from the United States and were part of an operation called Fast and Furious at the Department of Justice. But I think one of the biggest injustices that recently happened was last year in August. I could not believe what I was reading. It was like I was in a state of suspension because I thought it just couldn't be true. But the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals vacated the convictions of Horacio Osorio Arianes, saying his constitutional due process rights had been violated. And they sent the case back to the U.S. District Court in Arizona for further proceedings. This was the man that was sentenced in the fatal shooting of your brother, Brian Terry, on December 14th. What was that like for you and your family after all that time to then see the Ninth Circuit, which is notorious, by the way, for not defending law enforcement officials, but to see the Ninth Circuit do this to your brother?
You know, you know what, Sarah? It was another kick to the face, another kick to my mom, my sisters, and me. And we were stunned for words, and I couldn't believe it. I had to read the article 3 times. I'm okay. I misread it. I misread it. I started reading again. It's like, when is my brother going to get justice? I mean, he shed blood in the soil. He served his country as a Marine, a law enforcement officer. This shouldn't happen. It shouldn't take this long. And for this to be overturned like that, it's just, it takes the honor from him and from what he did. I mean, and to have an illegal that come over here and committed a crime and then run back to Mexico, how does he even have rights? How did our DOJ even fumble for the second time in Fast and Furious? They fumbled, and now they fumbled. You're supposed to be protecting my brother and the citizens here, and you're not.
Well,
It was just a blow to us.
this is what was so crazy. Arianis was convicted of first-degree murder and other charges after being extradited from Mexico. He was among 7 defendants who were tried and convicted in your brother's killing. The appeals court said Arianis had confessed to essential elements of the U.S. government's case against him while being interrogated in a Mexico City prison. So he actually admitted to the killing. He admitted to being involved in it. He admitted to what the Sinaloa cartel had done. They extradited him. What did the Ninth Circuit want?
That's $1 million question. It's like, because I guess from what I'm hearing, they weren't supposed to get a confession out of him in a different country. Our agencies weren't supposed to go down there and get a conviction out of him. They were supposed to bring him back to the States to get the conviction out of him. They didn't do that.
Well, let me tell you this. This is what's so bizarre to me. I've worked on stories where the United States government actively sought information from drug members, literally in Mexico, against U.S. Border Patrol agents. And I don't know if you'll remember that, but that was Ramos and Compean.
Yeah, I remember
It
them
was
guys.
Ramos and Compean, and they were commuted under President Bush because of the stories that I wrote. But I remember specifically that our U.S. attorneys went to Mexico to get the evidence to convict our law enforcement officials from drug dealers there. And now they're saying that we can't get a confession from Mexico from a person that is being held in prison to be able to charge them here.
Yeah. Well, the kicker to that is, and now they want to do a plea deal. They don't want to charge him with the first-degree murder now.
Do you think there's something else going on here beyond?
Honestly, I feel in my gut, and my brother-in-law has been saying this since day one. He goes, Ken, I think that guy was a CI. I think he was a confidential informant for the government, man. And I think this is a way. I got a feeling he's going to walk. I really do. I really do.
What is going through your mother's mind right now?
Honestly, my mom just had open heart surgery a few months ago. So you know what? We're trying to not really tell her what's going on, because I think this, to be honest with you, I think this would put her over the edge. I really do, because that's why me and my sister's been trying to like baby this around her and not really tell her what's going on until we find all the facts out. But it's I got to back up here a little bit, Sarah, and just sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but it just pees me off that all these politicians and presidents sit there to the media and to you and I, and sit there and say no family should go without answers, no family should go without justice, and nobody should bury a damn child. And you know what? Look what they're doing to us. Look what they're doing to us. And now these lawyers are telling us that my brother's case might not start for another year, a year and a half. That's going to take us over 16 years. My family's been waiting with zero answer, zero accountability, and zero justice.
And was anyone ever held accountable at the Department of Justice?
No.
For gun running?
No, nobody was. All the ATF guys involved in it, they all took a cushy position, or they got transferred to another part of the ATF. No one's been fired. No one's retired. If they did retire, because their time's up. But you know what? There's a lot of people, you know what, and Donald Trump needs to reopen this case. He needs to release the documents into this case that Obama did executive privilege on, because there's so many people that haven't been answered. Lanny Brewer, Dennis Burke, the guy that Daryl Issa tried to get to do the hearings with, but they ended up sending him over to Iraq. Kevin Riley, I think was his name, Kevin O'Reilly. He had direct ties to the White House. So they were answering to him. So it had to lead to the top. So there's a lot of people that need to be re-questioned about this whole BS scandal, man. Because you know what? It's just not my brother that died. You had Agent Zapata that they were harmed with these weapons. You had how many thousands of people in Mexico have been killed with these weapons by now? You know?
Well, Victor Avila was with Jaime Zapata. Victor Avila is part of my Border 911 team, a great friend of mine. I know somebody who you know very well, as he almost lost his life as well. Jaime Zapata lost his life with Victor. They've always believed, you know, that there's more weapons out there.
Oh yeah,
that we never collected all the weapons, and that maybe it wasn't just Arizona, that maybe there were other states involved in this ATF. Let's start there. Explain what happened in your words with Fast and Furious, because this was a U.S. operation, ATF operation with DOJ. It was a gun running operation. And they were trying to track weapons in Mexico. But ATF was a big cover up, and not even Congress got to the bottom of it.
No,
everyone failed.
No, you know, I did not know about Fast and Furious until John Dodson came out on the Cheryl Atkinson's CBS Evening News story. That was the first I heard of it. But we had a feeling that something wasn't right, and about 2 weeks after our brother's death happened, we got they brought us down to Arizona for a memorial thing. Well, after the memorial thing, we got put in a room to answer questions about what happened. There was a bunch of FBI agents in there and everything else. And there was a panel of people, maybe 15 people from the FBI to the, you know, whoever was there, Border Patrol, DEA. And they're asking us, and my brother-in-law, Ron, asked him a question. He goes, hey, this wouldn't have to do anything with those guns being ran to Mexico. And I wasn't in the right frame of mind. I didn't catch it at that point until Cheryl Atkinson broke out the story. Well, right after that, the memorial thing, we got called into a room by U.S. Border Patrol Union guys. Sparkman, Bonner, and McGovern. Those are their names. I remember right to the T. They pulled the shades down. They looked right at us. They only wanted immediate family members. So we went in there. They said, hey, we're throwing you a bone. But what happened to your son didn't happen to your son. This is the Border Patrol Union saying this. And I got witnesses. The whole family could sit there and say they did. You know, they witnessed the whole thing. And they said, we're throwing you a bone to look into it. And that's when the whole Cheryl Atkinson thing. So they knew, the Border Patrol knew there was weapons running south. And they did nothing to prevent it.
They went after Cheryl Atkinson too.
Yes.
And I'm trying, you know, I'm piecing all of this together. She testified before Congress. They made her life miserable. They made everyone's life miserable. Anybody who went even near this story, they made it so confusing for people. You couldn't find the information. People were trying to find information. They would hide the information. The DOJ hid the information. The Department of Justice would not allow people to testify before Congress. How big do you think this was?
I think it was worldwide. I think guns were going all the way. I'd be surprised. You know what? I wouldn't doubt they ended up at Benghazi, because I heard they're going through Mexico over to Syria, and they ended up at Benghazi. You know, they ended up at the Paris attack. Not the Paris attack, that Pulse nightclub attack. You know, worldwide. I think we're funneling guns just not to Mexico. And I think if we did go to Mexico, I think Mexico is selling to other countries. And it wasn't just 2,000 weapons like they say. I say it's been going on for years and years and years, because the way they say it, they were letting known felons, Sarah, come into the gun stores and buy hundreds of AK-47s, you know, 10 here, 15 here. I mean, add that up. So they just had like one guy. They didn't have one guy doing it. You got, like you said earlier, this was going all the way from Texas all the way to California gun stores, all along the border.
There were people as far away as New York that I've spoken to that said the same thing was happening to them, to their family, on, from the East Coast all the way down, that they have evidence of that and that they want the Trump administration to investigate. Are you at all talking to others to see what can be done right now? Do you think we'll ever be able to trace these weapons?
I think they're lost. I don't think they'll ever recover. If they do, it's going to be at a murder scene. That's the only thing I can think of. Or, but I got Border Patrol agents, you can mention it, they're still finding guns in the desert, buried. They sent me pictures. Hey, found another crate full buried. So, you know what? This has been going on for a long time. And you know what? Shame on our government under Obama, man, to sit there and put your Border Patrol agents that are defending this border in danger. Because that's exactly what you're doing. And now I got a nephew that joined the Border Patrol, and he's down there working out of the same station Brian did, running the same beat. You don't think we're worried every day? Every day? I mean, this is where Trump's got to step in. I mean, he promised me to my face. He promised he would open the books in the Fast and Furious if he became president in 2016.
What is it that the government is still hiding? Beyond the DOJ said they released this 500-page report on Fast and Furious. A lot of it is BS. They didn't answer any of the questions. The review of the ATF's operations there. What is it that you think President Trump can do and get to your family so that you can move forward and get justice for your brother?
Release the documents to us, release them to the public, reinvest, have Bondi reinvestigate this whole thing. Because like I said, that's twice now the DOJ fumbled in my brother's case.
Once with Eric Holder, Eric Holder never spoke up.
No, never spoke up.
They never made him.
Never spoke up. In fact, he called me a thorn in his side in an email. In another email, they talked about wiretapping our phones back when all this happened. So you know what? Not only did they kill my brother, they are violating us too.
Just for all of you out there who don't remember Eric Holder, he was the Attorney General at the Department of Justice when all of this went down. He refused to testify before Congress. He was even held in contempt of Congress, but yet our congressional officials and lawmakers had no teeth. They didn't hold, they should have thrown him in jail.
Well, you know who stopped that? I'll tell you who stopped that. It was John Boehner. John Boehner stopped that contempt thing because he didn't want to put Holder in handcuffs because he didn't want to look like the Republican Party to be the racist party that put the first black attorney general in jail. And that's a fact. I heard that
and that's so crazy because that should have nothing to do with it. That is what, the very beginnings, right? Of this kind of woke mentality, this fear of like holding people accountable for who they are, not the color of their skin, doing the right thing. So all of these documents, if Attorney General Pam Bondi is able to reopen this case, relitigate, look at it from a different angle, what do you think they're going to discover?
A lot of wrongdoing. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I hate to say this, Sarah, but I think it's on both sides of the aisle. I really do. Because you know what? When I sat down and met with Eric Holder in his office, he lied to my face. He says, you know what, Kent? When I find out who's responsible for this operation, I will hold them accountable. And that my mother was in there and Maria Espinoza. We were all sitting there. And he told me that right to our faces. You know what? And he lied. He lied. And 2 weeks later, he's held in contempt. You know what? I think there's a lot of people involved in this. And I think it's bigger than what me and you think. And I think that's.
Do you think the Mexican government has information that maybe we don't know yet publicly?
I think that's why they're trying to sue us right now. I think that's why they're trying to sue the U.S. government for $100 billion or $10 billion or whatever it is. They know the U.S. screwed up, and that's why even more Trump should open this case up. He should open this up and sit there and say, all the way back from the Bush gun. What was it under Bush wide receiver? Start from there all the way, and then find out all these agents that are still involved that made these stupid decisions, like Bill Newell out of Phoenix, made these stupid decisions. Let's put guns in the hands of criminals, which we all are seeing what these criminals are about. So,
we definitely are seeing it. Explain for the listeners who don't know how they were trying to monitor the criminals, why they were letting them walk with these weapons and allowing these weapons to enter into Mexico.
to show that there was a gun problem coming from the United States. That was Obama's biggest push right there, was to sit there and say, hey, we got a gun problem coming from the United States, and that's why we should ban guns and go after our Second Amendment. And you know what? It backfired on December 14th at 11:15 at night. It backfired on them. You know what? And hours after that, the attorney generals and all that were scrambling. When I was looking at some of these Freedom of Information emails, they were scrambling to try to bury this real quick.
Let's think about this. For everyone out there who is listening to Kent right now, this is exactly what the Obama administration was doing. Doesn't it remind you of how Biden left the border wide open? I mean, it's like this is their MO. This is their modus operandi. This is how they target our security and the American people to try to get what they want because of an ideological bent of what they want to do and how they want to control us. They were allowing weapons to leave the U.S., thousands of weapons, and I believe so much more than what they say, so much more than the 2,000, quote unquote, or whatever that they say went over to Mexico, so much more, because they wanted to prove to all of you, to every one of us, that we have a serious problem. They were the problem.
Yep.
They were the ones allowing it to go across the border. That was it. That was fast and furious. And once it got to Mexico, those weapons just disappeared. They just went into the fabric of the Mexican cartel, diaspora, and became weapons that they utilized against the Mexican people and our own people. And Brian Terry, sadly, Jaime Zapata, sadly, and probably others.
Oh, can you imagine how many people in Mexico's side that got killed with these weapons since 2009 when it started? Can you imagine? Thousands, tens of thousands, probably. You know, there's always shootings and cartel wars going on over there. You know, I bet you one gun down there has probably killed 5 or 6 people in Mexico.
Oh, and we might not know, or we might be able to work with our Mexican counterparts to get some of those weapons either back or find out if some of them match actual killings.
How are we going to know
Mexico, which would be almost impossible, I would imagine.
That's what I'm saying. It's even more. Trump needs to look into this. It's like I said, thousands of people are getting killed with these guns. And you know what? And I'm a gun guy. I hunt, I fish, I do all that. I shoot guns. I love it. You know, because that's my Second Amendment. But you know what?
Right.
I'm not going out there and giving my pistol to some guy to go commit a crime like these guys. You know, and that's another thing too. You know, all these politicians that sat there and promised us, well, we're going to get answers for you guys. None of them. Darrell Issa, Grassley, Chaffetz, all of them guys. They never did a damn thing. It was all a big Hollywood show. That's all it was for the American people to think they're doing something. But behind closed doors, Sarah, they didn't do squat for us. Nothing. They used us for what do you call that?
They used you for political gain.
Yeah, political gain. That's what they did. You know, my sister endorsed Rubio. You know what? He said he's going to help her out. Nothing. Crickets. You know what? That's what I'm saying. I'm at the point now I don't care anymore because these guys don't care what I'm going through or what I feel every day, the anger I have. You know, and it upsets me. They get to go on their lives knowing that people are getting killed. Zapata families without answers. Ours is without answers. You know what? And you know what? That's why this needs to be reinvestigated and started over from scratch.
Yeah, we do need to relitigate this. And I think it's vitally important that we not only bring you on, but we bring on other family members. We focus on others who have been harassed by the ATF and who I believe might have information that could help break the case open. But I think the most important thing is, you're right, the Department of Justice. It has to do its job now because it was the United States government that ran an operation that led to the death of your brother, that led to the death of Jaime Zapata. And I'm like you, Kent. So many people in the government just want us to walk away from this. They're mad.
I'm not.
They're mad when we rear our ugly heads, you know, and come back like bulldogs and hold on to the story and say, wait a minute, we're not moving on yet. You need to answer these questions because people actually died. People that would have given their life for you and did give their life for this nation actually lost their life because of your inadequacies as well as your I would say, purposeful operation against our own national security. And the fact that
Yeah.
nobody else knew about it, and they were using this as some kind of ideological warfare against, I don't know, against the Second Amendment, it's insane.
Yeah. Sarah, when we buried my brother, we lowered his coffin into a hole that was half filled with water because of the rainy season. How does that sit with you, seeing that, knowing a guy defended his country as a Marine, a law enforcement, to drop his coffin into 3 foot of water out of 6 foot? It doesn't sit with me well, and it hasn't. I mean, I think about it all the time, continuously. You know what? These guys don't have to endure the pain that my family has been through and the hell we've been through. Because you know what? They sit there and they talk about George Floyd. Look how fast they got answers for him within months.
Right.
Within months. You know what? We've been, like I said, this trial might not start for a year and a half. That's another 2 more years to say. That's going to take us over the 16-year mark with nothing. My dad died not seeing answers for his son. You know what? My mom's in poor health. You know what? If this is what they want, if this is what their way of saying, oh, just hopefully it fades away. It fades. It's not going to fade away with me. You know what I'm saying? I'll go on for the next 30 years if I have to.
You know what? I want to give you this last moment. And what I'm going to do is, when this show starts, I'm going to go through the entire story, hit the high points, what happened with it. So that way the audience, when they hear you speak, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's just that important. What do you want to say to President Trump? What do you want to say to Attorney General Pam Bondi? What is it if you were sitting in the Oval Office right now talking to them, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, give my family the peace we deserve. Give my brother the honor and respect that he died for. Okay? Nobody should shed blood in this soil, especially committed by a foreigner. Nobody should. And like I said, Trump, promises made, promises kept. You promised me. You promised my mom a few years later in the Oval Office. My mom was there in the Oval Office with my sister at a Border Patrol dinner or luncheon, and he told her that. He needs to fulfill his promise. Pam Bondi needs to reinvestigate this whole thing from top to bottom. Go back and answer to all them guys. You question all them guys. Dennis Burke, why is he still working? You know what? And a lot of these guys that were lawyers worked for that one place that Trump just went at, one of them lawyer firms. You know which one? I can't remember the name of it, but Eric Holder works there.
Right.
And it's just like, I can't remember the name. It'll come to me probably when I get off the thing. But I just want them to give my brother the respect, the honor that he deserves, and give him answers to why he died.
And I believe that he not only deserves that, he deserves justice, but so does your family. And your mother shouldn't have to suffer any more than she's already suffered. 16 years is a heck of a long time to wait for justice. And I can't even imagine what it must be like. He was an amazing man. Border Patrol was blessed to have him, and he died for our nation. And that's the least we owe him. And he served as a Marine. I know my father was a Marine.
That's even more reason why Pam Bondi should open. And don't wait a year. Don't wait a year. My family's waited long enough. The trial is about to begin. Do it now.
Let's do it now. Well, I got to tell you this. I'm going to fight for Brian. I am going to bring you back on the show. I am going to do everything I can to make sure that this message gets heard loud and clear across the country, Kent. And I would like to do everything I can to help you, whether that's my platform. If you want to write a column, you can do that. I can work with it on you, work with this with you. I can get the information out there. I think it's just that important. We should leave no man behind, and especially somebody who has served our nation and given everything like your brother did and like your family has. So I will be there for you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you come on again next week, folks. I'll be feeling so much better then, but it's just too important for us not to to get the attention on it right now, Kent. I just think like we can't wait any longer.
No, we can't. This is very crucial time now. Like I said, if the trial starts, it's better to do it now before the trial
Right.
starts. You know what? You know what, Sarah? I don't know if you can take this, but like a friend of mine, you know who I'm talking about, owned a gun store, and he's got all the legal documents, the bank transactions, everything for what they did to him in his uncle's
Right.
store.
And I think we
So
need to work with him. And I think we need to get all that information
yes,
out. So I want to work with you on that. Kent, thank you so much for being a part of the Sarah Carter Show. Folks, this is why I do this podcast. This is one of the most important stories we can never forget, and we should never forget. Brian Terry and his family deserve justice. We need to fight for him. This is why we elected President Trump, so that we can bring justice back to this country, because we're a nation based on principles. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sarah Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. We really appreciate it. Follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official, on X at Sarah Carter DC, and on Instagram at S Carter DC. God bless you, Kent. God bless all of you out
thank you.
there. God bless our great nation. God bless Brian Terry. God bless President Trump. And of course, God bless the great state of Texas.